me to dive into it, you just ask.
All right, we are live. So it looks like those blinds behind you are office blinds. Are you at the office?
Yes, I've been at the office pretty much every day. I don't go out and about a whole lot. What I do is necessary. I have my little plastic baggie of face mask and
Okay, I was like,
booty cover. No, I have a little plastic bag. So if I go see somebody, I take it with me.
Yeah.
I'd rather not wear any of it, but I want to be respectful of what they want me to do.
Yeah.
And so I just ask them when I first see them, hey, you tell me what you'd like me to do. And everybody's always like, I just come on in. What do you please?
Well, so Houston, as of Monday, just enacted a that you have to wear a mask if you're out in public unless you're exercising or in your car.
Okay.
So that's been interesting. We had purchased masks just similar to like what you're saying, right? Because when you're visiting with people or you have to go into someone's home, we were like, okay, well we'll bring them, and we had been using them kind of off and on, as you said. But Monday was the day. I think they said through the end of May. They're required for being out in public.
Well, I don't think that's happened in Georgia. I know that a couple of retailers are requiring you to wear them, like Costco, I think, nationwide. Okay. You have to wear one. And I always have one with me. I have one in my car, and I'm totally happy to wear it. I'm just not close enough to people most time for it to really matter anyway, not physically.
Yeah.
I get so much done at the office. Our office is about 4,500 square feet or 5,000. Very rarely is there any more than one other person here. In fact, for 2 days in a row, there was nobody here with me. And it is amazing how much you can get done when you're by yourself.
I was going to say, you must have been so productive. All of those projects that were backlogged. And
everything. That's exactly right.
That was something I realized early on in all of this. I was like, I need to write down all of the projects that we want to get done. Because now is the perfect time, right? We've got, online meetings and stuff like that. But now is the time. So
were you going into your office some days as well?
So today I am in the office. I needed to print out a bunch of stuff, and our home printer, is just so slow. So it made sense to come in. Today.
Good for you.
Sorry, I'm just trying to share this right now in a couple groups.
Oh, you're good.
What else has been going on? What else is new with you?
All my daughters have been home. I assume you're maybe asking personally. So
yeah.
Well, I have 3 college-age daughters. Now I have 4. So my youngest turns 18 today. And so I've had 3 girls who've been off in college, all living at home. And I absolutely freaking love having them home. I love it. I love it. I love it because I miss them so much when they're gone. But it's a new way of living because I'm not necessarily in charge of my own house because they're off living college lives and they think they're in charge. And so we've had to learn to deal with that. But and they've done a pretty good job of sheltering in place. They've played tennis. My second daughter thought we all needed to be extra careful until she remembered that there was a boy from elementary school that she liked, and once she decided she could go see him, then she didn't think a lot about being quarantined.
That's funny.
She has double standards.
But you need to stay home. You need to stay home.
Yeah, you need to stay home because you're older, and I do have high blood pressure. So she kept saying I was at risk. I said, honey, but it's not that high.
Might be higher now that she's going to visit that guy.
When she goes to see boyfriends, it makes my blood pressure very high. That's exactly right. Like any good dad.
That's funny. Your daughter sounds a lot like me. I was on my parents a lot when they're like, oh, we went to Costco or we went to the grocery store. I'm like, you need to stay home. So I can feel where she's coming from on that.
I told my daughter, I said, honey, I'm almost 52. And I promise you that I've at least had enough smarts in order to make it to 52. You got to give me credit for that. I want to stay around to see you guys. So I'm not trying to go catch COVID-19.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate you taking some time today to chat.
My pleasure.
And I always love hearing you speak. I've seen you at a couple national conferences. You've been in Houston a few times to speak here. So I always have some really good takeaways. I think the thing that I like most is that you can break down what's generally dry and sometimes confusing statistics and put them into terms that make sense and everyone gets. So that's the one thing that, not the one thing, one of many things that I love about you is
I'm not sure that's always the case. Sometimes I get through speaking, I'm like, oh my God, I think I confused myself. I'm not sure what I said.
too many numbers. But that's one thing that I've always appreciated about you is that, you can take, year over year stats that most people would just glaze over and their eyes would glaze over and make them interesting and make them, something that everyone can understand. So I was excited when we were able to find a time that worked for us to chat for a a little bit about kind of.
I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to come back. You and I share mutual admiration. So I appreciate you and what you do, and I'm happy to help.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you like to dig into today?
So as I talk to people all throughout the country, and really I talk to people all over the country every day. That's all I've been doing since the very beginning, since March the 12th or 13th when I was in Toronto, and I was starting to get worried that I wasn't going to be able to come back home. They get very nervous about stuff in Toronto because that's where SARS came into North America from. But when I talk to people, I find people fit into one of two groups. I find people fit into the, hey, it's no problem. Let's just get out there. There's plenty of business. We'll go get it. And then I find there's the group that actually doesn't stay in the bed. They actually crawl under the bed when they get out in the morning. And by the way, I understand both of those groups because I have had some weird emotions during this time. Everything's fine. Let's just go. Let's keep it busy. I've had, oh my gosh, I've got so many employees and how am I going to pay them? And even, I've got daughters and they're going to school, and how am I going to be able to pay for all of them to go to school if the business kind of shuts down? So I get all those emotions. And so, Katie, I use data as a matter of self-preservation, because a salesperson, and I consider myself a salesperson whose mind gets off track, it's a destructive thing. So I understand people who are out there thinking there's not a lot of opportunity for me right now. I just need to kind of hunker down. I need to stay home. I need to be careful. But I started doing some research and I started looking at different markets, and I said, okay, well, what happens in the market? The first thing, for years and years being in real estate, I really thought I had something to do with whether or not people decided to buy or sell a home. Meaning, like, I could call you, Katie, out of the blue, and I could have a conversation and I could literally talk you into doing something, but that's not true. So I know, for example, you and your husband are in the process of selling something and buying something. I don't think you've started selling yet, but you're starting that process. Well, there was something that triggered that decision. So it was, we want more space or different space. I know you're kind of going to be in a historic area, and I think that's so cool, but there was something that triggered that thought inside of you. And more than likely, the day you decided you wanted to do it was not the day you did it.
Yeah.
So there was some time between those two things. And so I look at it and I say, okay, well, let's take Houston. And let's see if we can break down and figure out how many people on a daily basis are deciding to buy or sell a home, just like you and your husband. And I know you're going to do it, what, June-ish, July, something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and when did you start that decision, by the way? When did you decide we need to do this?
I can't put a specific time frame on it, but probably closer to Q3 of last year,
Okay, so 2/3 of 3/4 of the way through 2019,
Yep.
You guys made a decision, we're going to do this. And so if you were not in real estate, you would need somebody to help you do that, more than likely. And so that person would have needed to have been in the right place at the right time, and they would have needed to show you that they have the ability to help you make better decisions in order to go along with you for the ride. Because once you got started, you kind of got started even if you didn't do anything about it immediately. Mm-hmm. So you and I share a mutual friend in Houston, Chance Brown. And if he ever watches this, hello, Chance Brown. And so he and I were on a call yesterday, and we did a little bit of research. And he says there's about 150,000 real estate closings in your board, in your listing service on an annual basis. He says that's about what it was last year. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, maybe plus or minus a few, but his data is generally correct. So
well, yeah, it's probably a little more than 150,000, but what he said was 150,000. So
yeah.
And so here's what happens is you have a certain number of households in Houston, And certain things trigger people wanting to buy or sell. Number one, you get married, or you have kids, or you get a divorce, or people die, or you need to upsize or downsize, or you get a job change, or oil is 2 cents a barrel, or crazy crap happens, and then all of a sudden people decide they need to buy or sell. And so if you had 150,000 people last year, we know who made a decision at some point in the prior couple of years to buy or sell because they sold and they bought. Then that means you have 300,000 parties that are involved in transactions for the year. 300,000 buyers and sellers, because each transaction has two. And so if you break that down, that is 25,000 people a month who decide it's time to buy or decide it's time to sell a home in Houston. If you further break it down, that's 5,800 a week, every week. And it's 821 people a day. And so here's what's interesting is I think your average real estate agent, if I was listening, I would be thinking, yeah, but it's hard to prospect. It's hard to make these calls. It's hard to do the things that I need to do. And I'm going to tell you that I think it's because people don't know what to say. But because they feel like they're responsible for convincing people to move forward in some shape, form, or fashion, but they're not. So you don't need to say anything to convince people to move forward. You need to say things to people to help them understand you care and you want to help them, because they're going to make the decision to move forward. 821 today as we calculate it. And I'm sure it's more this time of year, and it's less earlier in the year, less later in the year. So I know it's not the same number every day. But the reality is that over a period of a year, there's 821 households that make a decision every single day to move forward. So if we're not reaching out to them on a regular basis, they're going to move on without us. So you've been in the business a long time. Have you ever found out somebody you just knew was going to buy or sell with you actually bought or sold with someone else?
Yep.
Me too. And I don't because I'm so great at helping people move forward buying or selling home that I can't imagine that they would move forward without me. Well, the reality is that I'm not even a part of that equation. So I have to be in the right place at the right time with something of value to them to help them understand. So there's two things I'd like everybody to remember. And I call this the river of real estate. So in Houston, the river of real estate continues to flow regardless of whether there's coronavirus or not. Whether we're summer, fall, spring, winter, it makes no difference. Whether employment is good or bad, the river of real estate continues to flow. And that's not the transaction itself. That's the people making a decision to do a transaction. And so what we have to do is we have to reach out and communicate with our sphere and our top 50 and our past clients and our prospects that we've never, ever met with. And we have to feel absolutely no obligation to encourage them to move forward. We just have to reach out and find ways to help them. So for example, if you, Katie, were in my prospect list and I was going to reach out to you today, I would reach out to you for one thing and one thing only. Even if you came in as a buyer prospect on my lead gen platform 2 months ago, I would reach out and I would say, listen, forbearance is not forgiveness. Meaning if you get forbearance on your mortgage, it does not mean you're going to be forgiven of payments. This Consumer Financial Protection Board has approved 3 different ways for you to get forbearance. 2 of those ways don't make any sense. So before you do anything, please reach out to me and let me tell you how those forbearance programs work so you can make the best decisions possible. Because what I need to do is I need to give you some information that helps you feel like I'm trying to help you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's kind of my thought when it comes to what people need to be thinking. So if you want to create stability and consistency in the future, which is what this whole Facebook Live is about, you have nothing to do with whether or not people move forward. They're going to continue to move forward with you or without you. So just get out there and find ways to give them service. And if I'm calling you and I'm just trying to give you some service and you don't want to take that service from me, I don't feel like you're rejecting me.
Yeah.
I actually feel a little sorry for you because you don't want to take the information that I'm trying to help you with. Now, you know what I mean? Like literally, yeah. Poor Katie, she's probably going to get surprised when the bank wants all of her money on the 91st day of a 90-day mortgage forbearance.
Yeah.
So what do you do to try to get yourself to understand that it's not all about you, that it's really about the consumer, and that their plans don't have anything to do with you?
It was actually Verl that put that into my head a few years back.
Okay.
And that's something that I think that, once you have that realization, I think things change a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that we have a tendency to put ourselves into situations, and into negotiations and into different things. And it's like, when you try to figure out what you can do to best serve your client in their situation, or, as you're saying, like a prospect or things like that, it may not be you helping them, right? It may not be them moving. It may not be, I don't know what, right? So I think understanding that the world of abundance in which we live in is something that once I kind of had that mindset, things changed a lot. So,
and by the way, what did it do? Because a lot of agents, they're just nervous wrecks on the inside. They're just all bottled up and tied up, and they're so nervous they squeak when they walk because they want to prospect. And I get that. I totally get that. I don't want to bother people who don't want to be bothered. But once you realize that the transactions are going to take place with you or without you, and you turned over to more of a service type attitude, how does that help you with your anxiety and your nervousness about prospecting to strangers?
I think it makes it a little easier.
Just a little.
I wouldn't say no anxiety whatsoever, but I definitely think that it's easier for sure.
But the thing is that if you have any anxiety at all, then that's something you need to continue to work on, because it means that you're still feeling like you have the ability to help them to make the determination as to whether or not they move forward, and you don't.
Yeah.
They're either going to move forward or they're not going to move forward. You just need to find ways to help them until you can get them there.
Yeah.
Make sense?
It does. It does.
So you want to change subjects for just a minute?
Sure.
So I think, if there's two things I want to talk about today for consistency and stability in the future. Number one, understand River of Real Estate continues to run. Don't be nervous about it. Reach out to people. Just try to find people to help. So here's the problem. We're saying reach out to people and find ways to help them. Now, we at Workman are creating a mastering or becoming a master of virtual real estate program. And we're going to teach people how to do that. So I think everybody needs to master this virtual real estate. You need to be able to do buyer showings online. You need to be able to have open houses online, have lender meetings online. You need to be able to do all kinds of things. You need to be able to do a listing presentation from start to finish, Katie, without ever having been in that home, and get the listing and be able to move forward with it. And that's a tall order when you think about it, because it's such an important part of a listing presentation. When you walk the home, when you see the property, you see what needs to be done. So you need to become a master. Everything that you can do virtually, you need to figure out how to do it, and you need to practice. Like, I'm proud of you. You've got a cool system here that we're using to broadcast live on Facebook. I've never even heard of it before. So everybody needs to master that kind of stuff, because that's what makes all that work. But when you're reaching out and calling people, you need to make sure that you have something to provide them, so that there's an opportunity you can get face to face. Because if I call you and say, Katie, I just wanted to check on you, make sure you're doing okay, and let me know if you need anything, you're going to sniff out a phony really fast if all I want to do is remind you that I'm in real estate and I need you to use me the next time you decide to buy or sell. But if I try to find something to help you with, and I almost insist that there's something I help you with, then you and I might find that we have a much deeper connection. So I'll give you an example. In today's world, people who want to save money, refinancing their mortgage is a really good thing to do, because they hadn't been cheaper in the last 4 or 5 years. And so we're finding reaching out and saying, hey, there's a few things we can help you with. We can help you with, mortgage payment deferrals, mortgage forbearance. We can give you online staging advice and guidance if you're looking to get your home ready to sell sometime in the next year or two, or we can help you discuss refinancing. And we help them with the decision-making protocols that says, if it costs you this much to refinance, then you need to save that much money or more in 18 or 24 months, or don't do it. And so we help them make those decisions. And so we're finding the bigger list we have of things we can do to help people, the more people want our help. And then we make that real, genuine, deep connection where a person thinks, oh my gosh, Cleve really just want to help me, or Katie just really wants to help me. And I want to work with somebody who just wants to help me. So those would be my two main focuses: Real estate is going to continue to run with you or without you. So don't be nervous. Just get out there and call. Master everything in a virtual world, and then figure out the fastest way you can get face-to-face with someone. So if we need to talk about whether or not it makes sense to refinance, let's jump on a Zoom meeting. Let's have a face-to-face conversation about it. Let's work some numbers. Let me share my screen and type some numbers, on a Google Doc, and let you see how the numbers work, because there's reality. And that's what we would do if we were with them face-to-face. We'd take out a piece of paper and we'd scratch it out.
Yeah. I'm sure you have a spreadsheet on your computer of a break-even point for a refi, don't you?
I don't. So it's not something that you really need to do. And so you would be surprised how when I'm talking to a consumer, I'm not very technological when it comes to the math, because you don't need to be. Working through mortgage numbers and working through comps, it makes a lot more sense when you're scratching notes on a piece of paper in front of you. They get it a lot more. So I just say, what's the cost of refinance and how much you'll save, and let's divide one by the other and see how long it takes. And the number needs to be less than 18 or 24.
Brian just joined us and said hi. I don't know if you know Brian down here.
Yeah, hi, Brian.
And, he's just south of the city here in Houston.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad he joined us. If he's got any questions, I don't know if he can post them, but I'll be happy to answer them. I don't know that they'll be right.
If happy to provide my opinion though. No, thank you guys all that are watching right now. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, so that we can answer those as well. I think those are two really good points, and I appreciate you again taking the time to kind of go over them. And the river of real estate, I like that.
It continues to flow through Houston no matter what.
And as far as virtual, I've seen your team out on Facebook a lot, at your different listings. I know you did one through Zoom as well, from your office.
Yes, I've done a couple of those. They didn't work out very well. There's something that goes on when I try, but here's what's interesting. So I've done 2 of them, and in neither case did I make it inside the house, because something happened in my Wi-Fi or something. My connection would just shut the video down. But like both of them have like 600 views.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the area, and I'm looking at the country club, and I'm zooming in around. And so any of those things, I think a lot of people are afraid to do the virtual stuff and the video stuff because they're afraid to be embarrassed. But the reality is, if you do something online and it embarrasses you, then people are just going to look at you as human, because they do stuff all the time that embarrasses themselves. So if you embarrass yourself, you're like, oh my God, Cleve's he's much of a doofus as I am.
Chance has joined us. He said, hi, Clive. I think
that's what, yes. So his wife calls him Chancey. And so I asked him if I could call him Chancey, and he said, no, Clive. Although I did, and everybody that was at his meeting, I did call him by the wrong name. He is my personal client, and I called him Chase instead of Chance the first time I got all of his agents. So I'm still living that one down. And now, by the way, daughter number 2, who has her little boyfriend that she's sweet on, so she can go out and risk getting COVID-19 for him, but her dad can't. His name is Chase. So now I'm going to be screwed up, and I'm probably going to start calling Chance Chase from now on.
I like that. I think I might start calling Chance Chase as well. So I appreciate you sharing that story.
Now I'm in real trouble.
Brian says, what should he ask Nate on his next coaching call?
Ask Nate to explain the river of real estate to him. Ask him to explain the river of real estate, and ask him to give you a list, Brian, of all of the virtual services that everybody in real estate in the U.S. needs to be able to provide. It's a simple list, but it's stuff you've got to figure out how to do. Picture this. You do a lot of relocation, right, Katie?
Yes.
And when people come to the city, they look around on the west side of the city and they live on the east side of the city, or they look near the water and then they live near the lake, it's weird what happens. But a lot of that sort of getting to know the area, what is 400,000 value in this area and this area and that area, and where are the city centers and where you can do that virtually. And so you don't have to spend all your time physically showing people around. You can really help them narrow down the area. So that's one of the things that we think, that's called a getting to know the area tour. And we think that should be in your arsenal to deliver virtually in the future.
Yeah. No, that's definitely helpful in narrowing down neighborhoods for someone that wants to come look at, 35 homes in a weekend.
Well, if I was coming to Houston, I wouldn't have any idea where I would need to live.
Yeah.
And if you had some time and you showed me on a big satellite map, here's where my office is, and here's where your office is, and here's where you can commute to work. I mean, that would really help me understand things. This is where all the oil companies are. This is where this is. Just help me understand the area. Then when I come there, and here's what would really be cool, if I happen to have a daughter who is looking to go to college and she's going to go to XYZ college, then you actually show me on a satellite view map, well, now here's where you would live, here's where your daughter's college would be. Or if I had younger kids and maybe they played soccer, here's the soccer complex. I mean, that stuff is so valuable, and you can create such a deep, meaningful, genuine relationship with somebody without ever seeing them face to face.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's great for individual clients, but also from a video perspective. I think that it's fantastic too, because it's evergreen content, right? So if you're making something about a specific neighborhood in, outside of Atlanta or in Houston or wherever it may be, it's content that, people can watch today, tomorrow, or a year from now. So I like that.
It's so interesting you bring that up. So you probably know I do a radio show in Atlanta.
Yes.
And we do podcasts, and we'll have a couple thousand people listen to the podcast every single month. And I have no freaking idea how. We post it on SoundCloud. It gets put down.
I listen to it.
No, but so here's the deal though. So what's so interesting is none of that is on purpose. It's all by accident. I happened to be on the radio for about 5 years. And so we just repurpose the stuff and use it. So now I've hired a podcast coach, and he was talking to me about the same concept of how do we take, so for example, you answer questions all the time. How do we put those questions and answers in a frequently asked questions part of our website, so we can be answering those questions for thousands of consumers all over the world? So that what you just said is so brilliant and timed perfectly, because it's really what we all need to think about is how do we take something we're doing once and turn it into a system that will work for us over and over again from now on. So that's what I spent 4 or 5 hours this week doing purpose statements and trying to redo the show. In fact, I recorded a show that'll be on this week, and I recorded it right before we did this. And I'm trying to have a new format for how we bring up questions and answer questions. And oh my God, I was so tired after an hour's worth of radio show, I can hardly stand it. It must be that I'm not very good at answering questions, or I certainly have to learn a new way. But I worked on it.
Well, I'm excited to hear it. I can't wait. Sarah wants to know what I should ask her next week on our next call.
Ooh, she can be on. So what's her background?
No, so she said, I would like Cleve to tell Katie one thing she should ask her coach, who happens to be me, is what she says.
Oh,
on our next coaching call.
Oh, let's see here. Sarah Michelle, what should she ask? So I would like you to ask Sarah Michelle to teach you the double looping method of creating awareness and accountability on lead flow.
Okay.
So it's called the double looping method. And I know you're building a team. And so it's so cool, Katie, because it teaches everybody to look at all of their lead flow for this week, all of it. So if you have 10 leads per person this week, they have to, in a group, by the way, when you're on a Zoom like this, they have to talk about all their lead flow. Mm-hmm. And then, Katie, you loop back 1 week and you pick one lead and you dig into details. You go into the CRM, you see how they're set up, you see the follow-up systems. But here's where the real key happens. You make that double loop and you go back 30 days before that. So in one sit down, everything for the week, one thing for last week, one thing for 4 weeks before that. And what happens is you create a different way of thinking for all your agents on your team. So it is human to look for the easiest way to get from here to there. So if you're giving me 4 or 5 leads a week, I don't have to worry about last week's leads because you're giving me this week's leads.
Yep.
The truth is that most of the sales are in last week's and the week before.
Or the week, or
6 months before, or a year before. So the double looping method of lead accountability and awareness.
Well, you've already taught me what it is, so now I can implement it before my next call.
So I didn't teach you everything, and there's some very specific things that Sarah can get from me, and you got to cover it. And there's the same 5 questions you ask on the week-old leads and the 30-day leads. Each time you don't ask it, they answer them on their own because you've told them in advance what they're going to have to report. And it causes you to look at every lead you've ever given them differently, every lead.
I like that because we definitely do the week by week. And we have them because they email us their report. So we have them printed out in a folder, right? So we can flip back to previous weeks. So if they're saying the same thing, we're like, well, hey, last week you said that this was, whatever. So I like the 30-day though.
Good, but make them so you can't look at your information. They got to give it to you. So they have to pull it up on a screen. They have to talk about it. They have to go into the CRM and they have to show you the notes and what's happening.
Yeah. Okay. I like it.
Now you might be doing that already because you're smart, but it's hard to do. No, it's really hard to do. And what happens is it feels like you're browbeating people when you ask. But if they know in advance what they have to tell you, then it's their presentation. They're performing and you're listening.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. That's a good one. Cool. Good. Any other, we're hitting about the 30-minute mark. So I want to be, Katie, aware of the time.
I'm tired of listening to myself. So I'm sure anybody who's listening is tired of listening as well.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add or put out there to the world?
Not a thing in the world. Not a thing in the world. Just remember, there's a lot of real estate that goes on. There is a school of thought that says more people over the last 5 or 6 weeks have made a decision to buy or sell than would normally happen, because you put two people together who aren't absolutely sure they like each other, and then you coop them up in the same house for 6 weeks. I mean, sometimes the end result is, look, you need to have a house and I need to have a house, or you put them together and or when you have the oil market is going crazy, maybe they need to move. So maybe more people made a decision to buy or sell in the last 5 or 6 weeks than normal. So get out there and reach out to as many of your prospects and your sphere and your past clients. Try to find out genuine ways to help them. Try to find ways to get face to face and understand that river of real estate never stops flowing.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for your time. It's always good to hang out, and I'm glad we got to do so virtually today.
Me too. Cool. Me too. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.